Well, Prez, as we go into these back-to-back games on back-to-back nights for the college football semifinals, let's look at the look-ahead lines for the championship game just to show you where Vegas and the bookmakers have these teams ranked. If Ohio State wins, they are going to be a 9.5-point favorite against Penn State and an 8.5-point favorite against Notre Dame. If Texas wins, they're going to be a 3-point favorite against Penn State and a 2.5-point favorite against Notre Dame. So basically, we have the third and fourth best team matching up here with the top two teams playing tomorrow. Now, I will say this. People make so much of Penn State having hosted SMU and then playing Boise. Basically, two non-Power 5 teams. Remember, SMU was in the American Conference last year, so they're only in their first season as the ACC. But when I went to my power ratings and compared SMU and Boise against Notre Dame's path, who hosted Indiana and then played Georgia without their quarterback, the schedules are very similar. When you take away Georgia's quarterback and change their power rating, basically they've played the same schedule. So what have we done? We've seen that the Penn State Nittany Lions scored 38 and 31 points in their two games, while Notre Dame got past Indiana 27-17, got that early lead. And against Georgia, they only had 244 yards against Georgia. They did put up 23 points because of the +2 turnovers and the score. That was not an offensive score. I look at this and I say, I like what Penn State can do versus Notre Dame relative to the other way around. Now, what Notre Dame does is they are an incredible cover team against wide receivers. Their QBR was 90.3. That was the third best out of all the Power 5 teams. But when you're playing against the tight end, those numbers aren't nearly as good. And let's remember, Tyler Warren for Penn State, 98 catches, 1,158 yards, 8 touchdowns, is the best tight end in all of football. I look at Penn State. We saw them lose to Ohio State back a few weeks ago in mid-October. They only had 270 yards. They made a big adjustment at that point. 12 personnel means you're playing 2 tight ends, and they have a lot of good tight ends. Up until the Ohio State game, they only played 12 personnel 25% of the time. Since that time, good coaches make adjustments, and they have made those adjustments. They're playing almost 60% of all play calls are in the number 12 offensive formation. Notre Dame has played a very weak schedule, number 56 in the country, by far the lowest of all the remaining playoff teams, and they have seen the 5th lowest number of 12 formations in the country. So Penn State is able to line up and do something Notre Dame has not had success in or not had a lot of success of it. Can Penn State stop Notre Dame's rush attack? Love 1,000+ yards, 7.3 yards per carry. And we saw what Riley Leonard can do. But this Penn State team has a very good rush defense. On the year, they're allowing 3.1 yards per carry. And I think they can slow down both Love and Leonard, where Allen and Singleton for Penn State, over 2,000 combined yards, both guys over 5 yards per carry, to me, actually has an edge in the running back. I like Penn State, but my best bet here for WagerTalk today is going to be under 21.5 in the first half. I know we're laying a point or two less than really half the number, but these teams, the adjustments they make at halftime, I'll be happy cashing that first half ticket, and these teams will be desperate in the second half. We'll see some weird things in quarters 3 and 4 of this game this evening.
Ralph Michaels joining us, everyone. Outstanding breakdown of an important football game. We have another important football game going tomorrow, Ralph. It's Ohio State playing Texas, and the line now is -6. Interesting line movements in both of these games. We clearly had money coming in on Texas yesterday. Now it's reversed with some money coming in on Ohio State. We have a total of 53, couple of 53 and a halves out there. How do you propose we attack this game?
Well, Ohio State is the most talented team in college football. Granted, they lost to Oregon on the road. They lost to Michigan. They have 2 losses. But when I look at the talent both of these teams have, when Ohio State plays to their potential and Texas plays to their potential, Ohio State would be a double-digit favorite. I think there's actual value here with the Buckeyes laying 6. They're a team that's made incredible adjustments. I think they made the best adjustments in college football since the final regular season game. Listen, Ryan Day and the OC got cocky, saying, we can beat Michigan on the ground. We're going to line it up. We're going to run it inside the tackles. And what happens? 26 carries, 77 yards, 252 total yards in the game, scoring 10 points in the 13-10 loss. Listen, you have Jeremiah Smith, you have Abuke, you have Carnell Tate, you have 2 running backs that have topped 1,800 yards. You need to throw the ball downfield to open up that pass game. And they've done just that. We've seen what they've done the last 2 games, passing for 317 and 319. They topped 300 yards at Oregon passing. They topped 400 yards against Western Michigan passing. Up until that time, those are the only 2 games the Buckeyes have passed for over 300 yards since, putting up 319 against Tennessee and 318 against Oregon. So we've seen what Jeremiah Smith can do. And when you pass the ball downfield, even if you don't complete it, it opens up those rush attacks for Henderson and Judkins. Ohio State's defense is what really has impressed me. One opponent has gained over 300 yards this season. That was Oregon on the road back in October. The last 6 games, 276, 256, 234, 214, 151, 251. An amazing job on the defense. And the one thing that I did notice was this. Jim Knowles came over from Oklahoma City, has done a good job this year getting his team ready to be here. Well, they were normally a single high safety defense. What they did, though, in the last few games after Michigan is they went to a cover 2. They've gone to that cover 2 almost every play the second half. And how did they get so much success with that? They brought in a cornerback to play safety. They let Caleb Downs now be the rover, and we've seen what he does stopping the stop unit. The changes on offense, the changes on defense, the best talent in football. And yes, Texas is in the semifinals, but I am not impressed with a Clemson win. I am not impressed with the Arizona State win. The only other team they played with the winning records were those Georgia and Georgia teams that they lost to both. To me, they still have not been there and done that. I do give them a 1-point home edge being in Arlington where the Cowboys play. The Buckeyes have good feelings. They beat Oregon for the national championship here, and Buckeye Nation will travel. So while there may be much more burnt orange around, Buckeyes inside the stadium will at least have 40% of the crowd, so I'm not worried about that in-state touch. Prez, I'm going to do the same thing here. Both teams are going to run the ball much more than they pass in the first half. I like under 26.5 in the first half, Ohio State, Texas. And again, I do like the Buckeyes as well.
Ralph, any outright winner here? I mean, Ohio State, massive favorite to win it all. Any thoughts?
Well, Prez, Ohio State was basically plus 100 to win the national championship with these 4 teams. And you look at it, they're a 6.5-point favorite here, and they're going to be an 8-point favorite next time. So if you like the Buckeyes to win this game, I think it's worth it. Instead of laying the 6.5, just bet them to win the national championship now. Yes, it's even money. Yes, you may have to lay $1.10 or $1.20 at this time, but you break down the favorites as a 6 or 6.5 point or an 8.5 point, put them together and parlay it. You're actually getting value, which is rare to have. Normally, when we get down these 4 teams in the NFL semis or the college football semis, they've taken so much of the value away, and the juice is so high that there isn't value even taking the favorite. There actually is value if you want to do that with the Buckeyes this year.
Ralph, I got to shout you out, man. You and your son, Jeff. I know we're talking college football, but I just took a look at your NFL playoff guide. It's spectacular, and it's free to everybody. You guys just did such a killer job. The WagerTalk bet on it, T&A sheet. Your NFL playoff guide. Tell us about it, and where can people get it?
I do have a 5% up on my site, wt.buzz/RM, but we're not even going to try to sell that now. Folks, just go to my homepage, download the guide, and hopefully it helps you pick out an extra winner in the playoffs. I break down. You have team logs for how teams did against those NFL teams that had a winning record. I have the playoffs the last 4 years by round, so you can see the rest and how those teams did and what the seedings were for those teams. Prez, there are 27 wild card situations. One example, if a team in the wild card has same season revenge and they're a division opponent that scored 28 plus points or more, like Pittsburgh, those teams are 11-2, 85%. There's some wild other situations. I'll give you one more for the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. The Ravens have allowed only 29 points their last 3 games combined. That's crazy. They've allowed 17, 2, and 10 points. When a playoff team has allowed under 32 points in their last 3 games, those teams have gone 37 and 13, 74% to the over. It is loaded. 27 more trends like that. Playoff logs, team logs, free, wt.buzz/RM.